That's why you're waving at me. I thought you were like telling me something else.
Yeah,
okay.
no.
You want me to start from the beginning?
Yeah. Yeah, whenever.
Go like this. Hi, I'm Darcy Brandt, and I'm an addict.
When and where did you go to rehab?
I went to rehab. I've only been once, and it was my first time was in Memphis, Tennessee in November of 2014.
And what led up to you going to rehab?
Oh God, how long is this interview? I'll tell you the condensed version is I was a shell of who I was. I was spiraled out. I was an ineffective mother, friend, wife, the whole 9 yards. And I had an incident where I took too much Ambien, and I scared my only daughter, who was 11 at the time. I'm sorry, she wasn't 11 at the time. She was 10. And it was horrible. Her dad wasn't around. He was out of town, and he got home and he said, "Do you want to go to treatment?" And I said, "I do."
And were you prescribed Ambien?
Yes, the reason I was prescribed Ambien was to kind of offset. I was taking pain pills. I have chronic back pain, and not very much of it, but it was keeping me up at night. It had like the opposite effect. I was really ramped up, and so to be able to sleep, I was prescribed by my doctor Ambien.
Mm-hmm. And for you, do you feel like it was really necessary for you to go to rehab?
Yes, it was so necessary for me to go to rehab. I did not have the skills on my own to help myself to get better, to be healthier, mind, body, and spirit. And even though I tried everything, I was completely ineffective. And it was a life-saving decision, and I am so thankful and grateful that I got to go.
And how would you explain how addiction feels to someone who doesn't really understand it?
I would say addiction feels like a cloud over your head, and you are underneath kind of like ether all the time. Nothing that you hear, feel, it's all just has to go through that cloud, and so nothing is the truth. You don't tell yourself the truth, because if you did tell yourself the truth, you couldn't just exist in the same place that you always were.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel like there are triggers that make it harder to stay sober?
For me, because the reason I went to where I did was it was called a dual diagnosis place, which deals with both an addiction component and then a mental health issue. And so for me, I have extreme PTSD. And so anytime I have a trigger, mostly it's not environmental, it's a relationship. So if anybody speaks to me in a certain way, or has a discussion or expects something out of me in a certain way, I begin to get a little crazy. And that would make me just want to check out.
And do you feel like you're still dealing with the same stressors that kind of brought the addiction to the forefront in the beginning?
So I still do have to deal with triggers. I mean, you can't. What's nice about treatment, when you go into treatment, is they kind of take all that away, so you have quiet to be able to identify them, and then to gain skills to deal with them. And one of the things that I tried to do, it took me 4 years, is to identify people that I have relationships with and begin to create boundaries. And if they don't respect the boundaries that I create, then I just can't have a personal relationship with them anymore. I can still love them, and it's nothing personal, it's nothing they did, it's just that I have to make sure that I don't have those triggers around me, so that, because that's the first thing that goes.
Okay, I'm gonna.
Am I making